Good job on the homework too. That was hard stuff.
All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. We'll get started today. Because we have what I consider a pretty great piece to listen to and to look at a little more carefully today. So if you would take out your handout that you had today for the Brahms Intermezzo, and I'm going to give you, it looks like I'm going to give you one reminder or hint on that, and then I'm going to ask you if you have any questions for me. And then I plan to collect that handout today, so we'll do that in 1 second. The other thing is, I decided, since last class, I decided finally to break down and actually print out a hard copy of the score. Not that it helps you much now anyways, but I think it will facilitate our looking at this piece today, because that's what we're going to spend really the whole class on today. So I'm going to give you a copy of the score. Yep, and then I'll address your questions on the homework. Oh, you do have one? Okay. I don't know if you have one, but I have a printing copy of the score. All right, my one hint/reminder for the homework today is on the back on section B, the top. You know how I'm asking you to analyze something, a modulation, as a chromatic modulation? Would you, since I don't think I put a reminder in the instructions, would you please remember to circle the 3 chromatic notes in your chromatic modulation? That's one thing I wanted to remind you about. Circle those 3 notes that show the chromatic modulation from A major to the dominant key of E major. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I think maybe before we listen to this piece, let's go ahead and take some. I'll take some of your questions on this assignment before I collect it. So, who has questions? Yes.
What measure would A prime beat start?
Okay, I would accept 2 possible answers. I would accept measure 76 or 77. I would, because I think there's a little pickup in 76 or something, so I'll take that. But I think the first downbeat is measure 77 for the A prime return of A material. Yes. Yes, sir.
So in the B section, it modulates to C sharp, but at the very end, it modulates back to A major. What do you want in that box?
Okay, I have no modulation to C sharp. I have some, I definitely recognize there are some cadences and chords that land on C sharp, but I consider those to be half cadences in the key of F sharp.
Oh, so F sharp minor?
F sharp minor is what I got for the B section.
And then at the very end, it modulates back to A major.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that in your chart.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I think there's just a few measures which I would call like a transition. It's right in between measures 73 and 76, right in there.
Okay. Yeah, because that also made it confusing to decide whether it's rounded or ternary.
Oh, well, okay.
I said ternary because the bulk of the B section, other than that very last measure, is in a different key.
Yes, it definitely is. The bulk of the B section is in a different key, you're right. Lengthwise, according to my notes, lengthwise, it shouldn't matter whether you tack on a few extra measures or leave them off, because I consider the B section to be shorter than the A sections that are around it. But yeah, I think I would. So, yeah, I guess what I'm basically saying is that lengthwise, even if you count measures 73 through 77, it still should come up a little fairly shorter than the first A section especially. So lengthwise, it didn't really affect my decision whether it's the B section itself is ternary or rather binary. Yes. Okay. So on the front, yeah, basically on the front side, I asked you, what is the form of the whole thing? And I would agree with you, what you were saying, ternary. But, and I don't know if I asked this, so this wouldn't even be on your radar, but the B section itself is its own small form, and I don't think I asked you to graph that. So we'll talk about that later today, okay? Yeah, okay, so, yes, ma'am.
So, now that you said the A section is a lot longer than the B section, I don't know where the B section starts now. I think I had it wrong.
Okay. Well, you all have the score printed out in front of you now. The B section starts where the first repeat sign appears. And that's right around 49, right? Yeah, that's where the B section, the big B section starts. So, I mean, if you want to do a little bit of math, and 49 all the way till 70, you could go 73, but you could also go as far as 76 or 77. That's the B section.
How picky are you on the timestamp?
Not very picky, because I know that there are multiple recordings out there on YouTube. I'll just tell you the spread that I have. Like for instance, my B section, I have a 10, 12. I have like a 20, yeah, at least a 20-second spread or window for YouTube. As long as your timestamp is somewhere in my 20 seconds, then you'd be fine. And it looks like the A prime section, I have an even bigger spread. I have over 35 seconds of space in there for you.
Okay,
Yeah, so not too picky, not too picky.
thank you.
Yeah, okay. Anything on the back? Anything else about your graph on the front? Let me just look to make sure that there isn't anything in my notes that are too tricky. I did give you that one reminder about circling and chromaticism on the back. Yeah, in fact, some of the back, on the very bottom, I just asked you to identify every 9 chord tones. That's all I did.
Can you go over the cadence for the B section?
Okay, I tried to give you some kind of a hint there on your handout that the cadence in the B section is really in measure 73. It's really in measure 73. So if you look at measure 73 in your score, basically what you have is well, let me take a look at, this is in triple meter. Yeah, triple meter. And on the down beat of 73, you have a few non-chord tones. We're all in the bass clef here. So you have something like this. And there's the cadence right there on the second beat of measure 73. I know you're missing a chord tone, but you basically got an F sharp minor triad. And then you have all this other fluff stuff. That's just a little bit of transition. I told you that goes to about measure 76. Okay, but the true cadence that bass. I would count that as your do, but that's the highest note on in the cadence. All this other stuff is just after the cadence. So you don't have to count that in terms of your highest pitch on that cadence chord.
So are we analyzing that chord, that sharp minor again?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
And you said to bring on the notes besides the F and G?
Yeah, all the triplet notes in the right hand, you can ignore those.
And then I just had a question for like the beginning of theory. The difference between an escape tone and an appoggiatura is an appoggiatura goes down or up by step and then leaves by leaf.
Yeah, okay, it's not necessarily the direction, it's more like the step versus the lead thing. So an appoggiatura is a non-chord tone that's approached by a leap and left by a step. But an escape tone is the reverse. An escape tone is a non-chord tone that's approached by step and left by a leap.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. In fact, I'm going to be teaching that to my freshman theory students next Monday. I'm all excited to get to start their non-chord tones. Okay. Yeah, I have time to take, I got enough time for another question if someone still has another question.
So would the form be sectional?
Okay, without giving you maybe a direct, oh, I left my scroll there, a direct answer, you gotta look at, well, first of all, what is the home key of the whole movement?
A major.
A major, that's right. Okay, so take a look at measure 48. The question is, do you have an A major chord in measure 48? If you do, the whole form is sectional. If you do not, the whole form is continuous.
So that's really like the only one thing that matters, so you can understand like ask.
No, yeah, you just have to look at, I mean, do you have a tonic chord in the original key at the end of your first large A section? And that's measure 48, that's where that section ends. So, yep.
Thank you.
No, no. I don't know.
Okay, should I should I give you a few moments to marinate and look at, oh, here's another question, yeah.
So on the back,
Uh-huh.
letter G,
Yep.
is three note chromaticism in that phrase?
Oh, yeah.
The three note chromaticism is in the music right here, so you gotta find those three notes and circle them. Oh, no, not in the parentheses, no. Every chord, the two chords in parentheses, please ignore. In fact, you could just cover it up or color them out or put a white thing. Just pretend that those two chords in parentheses are not even there. So it goes, just imagine that the chord in the first full measure goes to the last chord in the second full measure directly, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Just, I mean, you could even, I wish I would have just maybe blacked them out so you didn't even see them, but those are the actual chords in the music, I just didn't want you to look at those for the purpose of analysis. Yeah. Okay, we're getting to be about 15 minutes in. So, let me collect the assignment. Make sure your name is at the top, and I'll come around and pick it up. By the way, this is going to be one of the last assignments of this semester.
Oh, yeah.
Because next week we have some final exam reviews to do, primarily, chiefly. Thank you. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know that that one is. Because if it's just A, C sharp, and E, then that fits in key major just nicely. Yeah. Great, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I would do that. Oh, no, don't do that, just choose the highest. Yeah, no, you gotta look at notes from this chord and then notes from the next two chords to harmonize. So you just gotta completely skip.
Oh,
those.
are you talking about that one? Oh, yeah.
I forget, whose did I, oh,
Oh, because you had that, yeah, yeah.
all right. So what we're gonna do today, we're going to listen to this whole piece, especially since I've given you a score. I'm gonna give you, this is what I call a music study day. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of history on Johannes Brahms, not too much. We're going to take the form of this piece section by section, so capital A section, capital B section, capital A prime section, that sort of thing. And I'm hoping by the end of this class, you'll have found a slightly new or improved or even bigger appreciation for this piece than you may have had already. Okay? I personally if I didn't know much about the piece, I do like the sound of it. Musically, I think it's very satisfying. But I think it's even more impressive when you start to understand all of what Brahms has put into this particular piano piece. So let me start by saying, and you don't need to take notes on any of this historical stuff. Don't worry about it. In fact, hopefully you'll get some of this when you take Music History 2. Music History 2. Brahms, does anyone know what era or epoch of music history Brahms was in? Romantic period, that's right. He was a late romantic composer, and he was born in Hamburg, Germany. So if you can imagine Germany, Hamburg is really near the north, the top of the country. Okay?
He composed that like super famous violin sonata, right?
Yeah, he has a violin concerto.
Concerto, yeah.
No, I'm thinking the one by Mendelssohn. There's one by Mendelssohn in E minor. I don't want to get that one confused, but he does have a violin concerto, yes. He was Brahms was friends with Robert and Clara Schumann. You ever heard of the Schumanns? By the way, I would say Brahms was born right around 1833, so if you want to get an idea. And then he lived almost into the 20th century, not quite. He died in 1897. So that just gives you an idea. Brahms did have a lifelong interest, in early music. He was a very good keyboardist, both piano and organ, and he never married. So I guess there was never a Mrs. Brahms.
Wasn't there a rumor that he was dating with Clara?
Say that one more time.
Wasn't there a rumor that he had a thing with Clara Schumann?
It could be. I didn't look that far into it, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I mean, it's possible. Could have been, although Clara Schumann would have been. I have to look again. I think she would have been older than Brahms.
That's true.
Yeah. Not that that's not that there's anything wrong with that. So, okay. You might enjoy this. It's been reported that Brahms papered the walls of his room with 20 self-rejected string quartets before he made one that he was willing to publish. So he wrote 20 string quartets, and he disliked and rejected all of them. And I guess he took the staff paper, the manuscript paper that he wrote on, and he just put them all over the walls of his room because he wasn't satisfied with those, until he was finally satisfied with one that he was willing to publish. And then when he comes to his composition of symphony, it's even more drastic. It says, Brahms approached composition of a symphony with such extreme caution that he thought about his first symphony for 20 years before he finished his first one in 1876. How old are most of you guys? Are you 20? Some of you are like me, you're in your 40s right now.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, just think, if you've lived for about 20 years, can you imagine? Brahms was thinking about his first symphony for your entire lifetime. before he actually published one. And part of the reason was because he was just, I don't want to say intimidated, but you know, he had the shadow of Beethoven's 9 symphonies hanging over him. Okay, let me read you something from another, just a few sentences from another book I think you might find interesting. It says here, Brahms knew that he had to write a symphony to survive, right? Because if you're a composer back at that time, you've got to write a symphony. Okay. It was a necessary step to greatness to write a symphony. It was the only alternative to opera for which Brahms had no gift, and it was another alternative to music drama for which Brahms had no stomach. That's what this book said. For 20 years he thought about his first symphony, and they have in quotes, Brahms said, "I shall never compose a symphony. You have no idea how hard it is for our times," meaning composers, I guess, "to hear the stomp of a giant like him," meaning Beethoven, "behind us." That's kind of how he phrased it. But finally, in 1876, Brahms did finish his first symphony. It was a symphony in C minor, and it was actually well received. Does anyone know how many total symphonies Brahms wrote?
4.
That's right. Actually wrote 4.
Yes.
You have it on your phone right now.
No.
No, that's good. That's good. 4 symphonies. Okay, Brahms. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about that. He ended up dying of cancer in 1897, unfortunately. He is considered a successor to composers such as Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, and Schumann. So he kind of follows in their line of composition, although Brahms was a lot later. And his music contrasts greatly from another famous composer that was a contemporary of his. Have you ever heard of the opera composer Richard Wagner? Yeah. Well, Brahms' music is really opposite, completely different than Wagner's. Wagner's had different aims, different goals with his life and with his drama and with his music. Okay, so we need to find out what is an intermezzo, because the piece that you're looking at is called an intermezzo in A major. And again, you don't need to write down this definition, but I'll just tell you, an intermezzo is a 19th century composition for piano that was designed to express a particular mood, thought, attitude, or emotion. Now, Brahms doesn't, at least I don't know, I haven't researched it, maybe he did write it down or indicate what he was trying to get at with this piece. But, excuse me, I don't have a specific adjective or anything like that that Brahms stated or wrote down to describe what kind of mood, thought, attitude, or emotion he wants you to get after listening to this intermezzo that we're analyzing. But I could probably ask you at the end of class if I remember. What kind of mood, thought, attitude, or emotion do you get after listening to Brahms' piece? Okay, so let's listen to the first A section, which is measures 1 through 48. So you can follow along in your score. I do have it hooked up here brought up here on YouTube, and the speakers were working before class. So let's just listen to 1 through 48 and then stop. A section for your form. Couple things I would like to do is, I suppose I could see if I can turn this on. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna make sure the TV's gonna work today. I'd like to show you a few things on the document camera here about the homework regarding this A section. Everything on the back side of your homework was regarding the, found in the A section. Specifically, measures 4 through 8 is where most of the questions that I asked you, that's where they came from. Let's see if I can left doing this. I don't know if a different input is going to help. If I can't get it to go, then I might have to, whoops. I hesitate to do this, but I'm going to try it. Turn everything off. Try this one more time. Okay, that's a better sign. Look at that. Oh, by the way, did I get your paper? Yes. Okay, so I just want to show you that, again, this is around measures 4 through 8. This is what I got for that opening, for that part on the top of the back side. I got a couple chords in A major over here. Then I got the modulation, chromatic modulation to E major right here. And the chromaticism that I was hoping you'd find or circle was in the top voice, the soprano. You can see there's a D, and then skip the stuff in parentheses, then there's a D sharp, and then there's an E. That'll get you to E major, right? Because the middle note of 3-note chromaticism is very often T of the new key. And in this case, we're going to E major, and D sharp is T to the new key. And then the rest of the chords are all diatonic to E major. You should be able to analyze those. And down on the bottom, again, I was just asking you basically what kind of non-chord tone that you found. The first two I got were escape tones. Then number 3, I got an appoggiatura, followed by a retardation, and then a fourth suspension. Does anyone have any questions about that? I also do want to show you a little bit about what I have in terms of the graph. I should tell you that all of Brahms's, he wrote more than one intermezzo. In fact, the plural is intermezzi. And all of his intermezzi are in ternary form. Okay? So, on the front side, I was hoping you would circle sectional ternary. Okay? And in terms of the, again, I have multiple answers here. I told you for the timestamp. For the B section, I would put it anywhere between 1:48 and 2 minutes and 9 seconds in. For the A prime section, anywhere between 3:16 and 3:55 would be fine. And again, I'll take a look at what you have. We talked about the beginning measure numbers. The B section, I would accept 48 or 49. The A prime section, 76 or 77. Then the key of the B section, we did talk about, that is at the parallel, or not the parallel, the relative minor key of A major, which is F sharp minor, right? They all have 3 sharps in their key signature. And then the A prime section is back in the home key. And we also talked a little bit about the cadences as well. So I got a PAC in measure 48. I got a PAC in measure 73 in F sharp minor. And it looks like I can also accept an IAC for that one. And I got a PAC at the very last measure too. Yes.
Did you want those measures listed in the cadences?
Not if I didn't ask, then no. I think I do that for myself just because when I'm grading, if I get a different answer from a student, then I know right where to look to double check to make sure that it's either a right or wrong answer. So, yeah. And I think that was all I asked you to do on the worksheet, right? Okay, let's talk about, let's go ahead and listen to the B section, which is measures 49 to about 76. Let's do that, and then I'll tell you and I'll show you on the board that just the B section, the big B section of this ternary form, is a smaller form in and of itself. And so what we're going to find, even though I didn't ask you this, we're going to find that Brahms' intermezzo in A major here is really cast in composite sectional ternary form. Do you remember what the term composite means? Right, we just talked about that last class. It means at least one of the parts of your ternary is a form also. It's a nested or an embedded form in and of itself. Okay, so let me go back to this, and hopefully I'll still get sound. Just log me out, I gotta log back in. Let's try this again. Okay, I might have to shut it off and turn it on again. Okay, bear with me. Take another quick milk and cookie break. Oh, I know why it's not. Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to try one thing. Reconnect. Oh, couldn't connect to your device. key for this B section is F sharp minor. And it looks like when I try to graph just the B section and I use 4-bar phrases, I get mostly half cadences in F sharp the whole way through, although some of them are in the key of F sharp major, whereas some of them are in F sharp minor, and that is the final key, the overall key, I should say, of the B section, this big B section. I find out that when I graph the form of just measures 49 through 73-ish or whatever you want to say, this is the form I get right here. I get capital A, capital B, and I get capital A prime. And when I look at the two phrases of the B section, I find that this whole form of the large B section is rounded binary, and I find that it is continuous rounded binary as well. So again, I didn't ask you this on your homework assignment, but Brahms has nested inside measures 49 to 73. He's nested another form, specifically a continuous rounded binary. I'm going to end up playing the B section one more time. A couple things I want you to note. I don't know if you'll be able to. Well, I could maybe try this one more time. Dare I risk it? I'd like to show you a few things in your score about the B section that I think are pretty interesting. Okay, that's a good sign. Okay, let's focus here. There we go. Okay, so take a look at measure 49 and 50. One thing I want to show you is I want to show you Brahms uses some imitation here. We've got in the right hand, so on and so forth. Take a look at just the tenor notes. That is the upstem notes in this inner voice, starting with the C sharp right there. You see C sharp, F sharp, E, D, then there's a D, C, and then he's got, further on down the line, he's got C, B. So do you see that those notes are there, just like they are in the top hand? C sharp, F sharp, E, D, C, B, you know, you see that they're there? Okay? I think that's pretty neat, first of all. Backing out just a little bit. Oh, by the way, here's a melodic sequence. There's this little melodic sequence there. Now, notice that he's got this idea again. Bum, 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 and those notes are actually in the tenor. Just a beat later, C sharp, A, and then you go to the next line. And where do those notes show up over here? Now they're notated as an alto voice. C sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. So they're there too in terms of imitation. Now, when he goes to what I call the small B section, here measure 37, he goes to the parallel major or F sharp major. And we've got the same idea. Bum, 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 bum. And you can find those notes as the top notes of the tenor voice kind of in the left hand there. Bum, 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 just a beat later. So I don't know if you can find these, but I'm trying to, on your score, but I'm trying to show you. So the same thing happens again in this phrase. And then finally, what happens when we get to the small A section in measure 65, we've got Brahms turning the voices that he had in measure 49, he's switching them around. Now he's got this imitative quarter note voice up on top. Bum, 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 bum. And he's got this more faster moving voice that he started with in 49. He's got that as an inner voice. Bum, 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 bum. You can find that with using the alto notes right here, and then the tenor note upstems right there. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I'll show you that a little bit. One last piece of imitation right here. We got bum, 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 bum. And you can see just a beat later in the inner voice. Bum, talked about that. Yeah, okay. Let's go listen to finally the A prime section. Well, no, I want to listen to the B section one more time now that I showed you this imitation. So go back to measure 49. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Here's the F sharp major. Oh no, these are repeating, sorry. Now should come the F sharp major section. Back to F sharp minor. Okay. Before we listen to the very last section, and I don't really want to go back and use the document camera anymore, can you go back to the first measure of your score? I want to show you a motive. I want to show you a very important motive in this piece. The important motive is in the soprano voice, starting with the pickup measure, going into measure 1. And it's basically this right here. You've got this dun, dun, dun. Do you see it in the soprano voice? C sharp, B, D, the highest voice, right at the very, very beginning. If you want to mark that in your score, feel free to. This is the most important motive of the whole piece. And just for the sake of argument, I'm just going to give it an arbitrary name. I'm going to call it motive X. You could call it Fred or Theodosius if you want. You could even call it Santonio Holmes if you wanted to. But you don't need to. You can just call it motive X. Okay. Now, dun, dun, dun. Now notice the pickup into the very next measure. What happens to motive X in the soprano? Dun, dun, dun. What's happened to this interval right here? Yeah, it's gotten bigger. It's been stretched or enlarged. Okay, so I call the pickup into measure 2 in the soprano voice. I call that motive X stretched or motive X expanded. Okay, where can you find the instances of motive X? Oh my goodness, they're all over the place. Pick up into measure 5 in the soprano. Pick up into measure 6 in the soprano. Pick up into measure 9, measure 10. Take a look at, this is all in the highest voice. Pick up into measure 13. Pick up into measure 14. You see these things? Okay. Check this out too. Pick up into measure 25, the highest voice. Pick up into measure 27, the highest voice. Pick up into measure 29 and into measure 30. That's all motive X. And then what I like to do, look at the lowest voice going into measure 31. Do you see that? What's the rhythm there? Boom, 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 boom. Do you see how it's repeated over and over again? In 31 and 32 and 33 and 34. All of that is motive X. I didn't even know that was down there the first time I listened to this. So he put that in there. And then as you turn the first page, as you go pick up to measure 35, what has happened to motive X back in the highest voice? Dun, dun, dun. What's happened to it? Yeah, he inverts it. It's turned upside down. And then the very next measure, the stretched version, is turned upside down. Yum bum bum. In the highest voice. Isn't that cool? Okay, and then one last place I want you to look, and then we'll listen to the very end, is look at in the inner voice, an alto voice, measure 46, pick up into 47 and 48. Do you see that rhythm? Bum, 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 in the alto voice. And then finally, going into measure 48, pay attention to the downstem voices here. Notice you've got, you see the downstem voice is actually the highest note on the downbeat of 48? So it's not just this, but it's really this at the end. Okay. And, well, no, let's not even go there. Okay, go ahead now and turn to measure 77. Let's listen to the A prime section, and we'll just about be done here. So there's motive X and the return of A. Stretch next. Here comes X again. So that you can at least start looking at it and get started, and that's what we're going to do on Wednesday. Okay? So.
You still have to be here.
What the heck?
We just don't have to be here.
Kieran, breakfast?
No breakfast.
I can't think he had that idea in his head, and then he probably thought to himself, oh, you know what I can do?
Kieran,
Let's see what I can do.
No, the one time I
Like,
got breakfast, he exposed me to COVID.
I'm fine.
So I'm not taking my chances ever again.
By the way, this final exam is not comprehensive, so it's going to be a lot shorter than your typical final exam. Yeah, it's going to be a lot shorter.
F2 review. What?
Okay, you're free to go. So I'll start talking about reviewing for the final exam with this on Wednesday next week. So no class for this class on Monday, although we still have our own.
I mean, you don't have to have all.
Yeah, it's too bad that that was scheduled before period instead of after. Yes, sir.
You want to make you do that? I cancel that. Yeah.
Oh, no, I had this one that was in.
Yeah, I was going to figure that out.
I couldn't
Hard
fit
that
my
is
schedule,
today,
like
so
one day
it
every
was
week, and the
different.
next day. Oh, that's why I was
Colton, how many credits are you taking next semester?
16.5.
Well, I'm like trying to like squeeze something in that I have, it takes like 20 minutes to talk to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just because it's already like 30 minutes.
That's what happens, probably like,
Oh,
you just
yeah.
leave faster.
So I have to take like so many classes out of certain times. Like I'm so glad that I got, all the ones that I registered for, like, I can pay next spring, because I can't take my numbers.
Oh, so you
I already took it for year. Yeah.